We're going to take a break from the assignment for a quick moment to talk about what components are and how they can be useful. A component is basically a group that you have made, you have attributed a special quality to that allows you to copy it, and anything that you do to that copy or to any of the copies will happen to all of them. And I'll go ahead and demonstrate right now. So if I were to make a circle, double click on it, the first thing I do is I make it a group. The rule of thumb is everything in SketchUp that you make is always a group. So all components will at first start out as groups. Not all groups will end up components. So you might want this one to be its own. So if I make a copy of this and I do something to this next one now, I'm only doing the editing to this particular cylinder. I'm not affecting this cylinder at all. But if I make this cylinder that I've just copied into a component by right-clicking on it and going down to Make Component, this now is a unique item that when I copy, so if I'm going to just move copy and make two more, so times 2. So if I make some copies of this now, any of these, once opened up and edited, will communicate with the two next to it. And it doesn't matter which one you started with. So a component is a copy of something, and it's always speaking to the other one. So if I offset this face now, it's going to offset the faces on all of these. If I push-pull this down, it's going to push-pull down on all of them. If I do a material on one face, it's going to do that material on all of them. So this is very, very useful if I'm doing something that I know I'm going to be repeating over and over and over again. Good examples of this, especially in our model, are the columns, the mullions, the chairs. Anything that you need to duplicate over a step would be a good candidate for a component. Windows in a house where they're all the same size. So anything that you want to be able to edit just one and then it's going to affect all of them, you want to consider making that into a component. Let's look at some other things that components can do. I'm going to go ahead and make a rectangle off to the side here. I'm going to double click, make it a group first, open it up, pull it up into place, and just give it some three-dimensionality. And I'm just going to carve a shape out of it so it's obvious what's going on here. So now that it's closed, I'm going to right-click and make it a component. So if I copy this times 4, let's say, this is now, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 instances of the same thing. So if I open this up and start editing any of this, it's going to edit all of it at once. So this is happening to the whole thing. Now, when this is closed, if I rotate this, it's not going to rotate the others. And the reason for that is because I'm rotating this while it's a closed group. So I'm not editing it. The same thing goes if I scale it. So I can scale this up or down, and I can stretch this while it's closed, and it's not going to affect the others. When I open this up, however, I'm still going to be push-pulling, and it's still going to affect that one, but it's going to affect this one over here relative to how I just scaled it. Now, if I were to select this stuff while it's open and start rotating it, it's going to rotate all of them together because what I'm doing is I'm actually doing this in an open group, which is the same as editing it while it's open. If I close this and rotate it, it's not going to do that. It's only going to rotate the one. If I apply a material, let's just go with a color here. If I apply a material to this, let's go ahead and wait for this to react. If I apply a material to this while it's closed, it's only going to color this one because I'm not opening it up and editing it. However, if I open this one up, or this one, and I apply a material to just one face, it's going to apply that material to all of them because I've got this component, I should say, open, and I'm editing that one face. So what I recommend, and I've done this quite a bit, is if you're doing something like space planning, or you want to, you're going to have a certain number of columns, but you don't want to get into the huge detail of it, go ahead and make the thing that you know is going to be repeated over and over again. Make that into a component. So let me give you that as an example. Let me go ahead and say that I've got a circle here, and this is just going to represent my table. So I've grouped it, I've pulled it up into place, and I've got it closed now. Now I'm going to make just a little box that's going to represent a chair. I'm going to group this, and I'm going to pull this up into place as well. So this now represents my chair. I'm going to right-click on this, and I'm going to make this a component because I want this to be the same throughout my entire space. And if I copy this around this table, times however many times, times 4, I know that I want this little set to be one group after the fact as well. So I'm going to group this, so this represents my table with 4 chairs around it. Now I'm going to right-click and I'm going to make it into a component, so that when I move this and copy it several times, and I decide maybe I need 1 extra chair at every table, I don't have to worry about doing that to every single one. It's going to happen to all of them, and I can adjust the spacing of the chairs on all of them at once. So this is really helpful for me. Then I can open this up, and I can start to carve out the features on this chair, and I'm going to do this in a really, really rudimentary fashion, but I can start to carve out the features on this chair, and it's going to happen to every single chair because every chair is a component. So I don't have to do this to every single one, and I don't have to go back and copy every single one. Now let's say I've got one group or one component one group that's been made into a component, I should say, that I want to be slightly different than the others. At this table, I only need 4 chairs, I don't need 5. What I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click and I'm going to make this one unique. So when I open this up and delete this chair, it's only happening to this one. These are all still speaking to each other. So these two still know each other as components. But this one is now unique. So if I do something to just this group, it's only going to happen to this group. Fortunately, I've thought ahead though, and I've made the chair a component in and of itself. So if I open the chair up and decide to make it this color, that's going to happen to all of them. So I've double-clicked on the component, opened it up, and I've painted a texture on it. I'm also going to scale it down a little bit by squishing it from the top to bottom. That's going to happen to every single one. So components, just remember, everything that you make, you start out as a group, and if you want to make one of your groups into something that you can edit, and it's going to edit all of them at once, do that as a component. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this, and we're going to get into that a little bit more as we make the columns and the mullions of this model components.